John 10, verses 1 through 10 says, "Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore Jesus said again, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." So I guess the first thing that comes to mind when reading that passage is a childhood memory of my church that I grew up in, as well as my grandmother in general. I think my spiritual education growing up was a lot of avoiding the evil things in life, I guess you could say. The schools are wrong because they teach evolution, and the government is wrong because they allow abortions, and the other churches are wrong because they don't baptize you the right way and they allow women to teach, God forbid, and your friends are all wrong because they listen to that Satan music and such, so can't have any of that. This passage was quoted a lot, that Jesus is the only way. I think what I maybe didn't understand at the time was that in saying that, what they actually meant was the Southern Baptist, North Carolina mountains, Republican Jesus is the only way. And so needless to say, I left as soon as I could, and I had no intention of ever going back to church for that matter. I was done. I had no interest in that. I guess you could say God tried to get a hold of me a few years later. He was constantly just trying to get my attention. And at the time, I guess I called that being called into ministry, you could say. I didn't know what that meant, and at the time thought it was a sick joke, and I argued with God for a long time about how, God, you're wrong because women don't have a voice in the church, and women don't, do the ministry thing, and so you're either wrong for calling me or you're wrong for creating me to be a woman in the first place. Either way, you're wrong. I'm not doing it. Have a nice day. But God is persistent, and it took him a few years and dozens of people to convince me otherwise, to convince me that it was okay, that I did have a voice, and that I was not going to be what I thought, one of these thieves who come in and steal and kill and destroy, which is what I thought I was being because I was female. But now that I was convinced that it was okay, I moved on, and I guess here I am. So that's, I guess, my first thought. My second thought leads me to the sheep in general. Seems like, I am no farmer, but from what I understand, sheep tend to be fairly dumb animals. Their only protection in this particular passage seems to be that of knowing the shepherd's voice. And so if they are to not be persuaded by these thieves who are coming to steal them by calling them out, they have to know the shepherd's voice themselves, and that they can't take somebody else's word for it. They have to know the shepherd's voice. And so I can't tell you how you need to know the shepherd's voice, but I know what has helped me in the past learn the shepherd's voice. I really learned my own voice and then learned to hear the shepherd's voice, has been keeping an art journal. So I'm an artist in general, and so I've had one for as long as I can remember. and I will use that to write poems and songs. I'll write prayers to God. I will paint in it or draw, or I'll take things that I find in the world that inspire me or whatever, and I'll put those in it. And just kind of through the years, it's fun to look back through it and see kind of how I've grown and how my voice has changed and how I've heard God differently throughout the years. And that has been probably my primary way of connecting to God and hearing His voice and learning what that means for my life. I've also, one of my favorite things would be really good dialogue with other people who are also interested in that. The best thing in the whole world is to just create, to bake and cook like a wonderful, healthy meal and sit around a table surrounded by people who are also wanting to dialogue and grow and learn and debate and discuss. And when you do that, I feel like that's just like pure gold. Just to have a great discussion with people who also want to learn, and we feed off of each other and we challenge each other, and I feel like in those moments I really see the face of God, in the faces of the people around the table, and I learn to hear His voice that way as well. So I don't know what you should do to hear the voice of God, but I know that it's important to hear the voice yourself. That way, when other people do try to tell you that you need to do this or do that or don't do this other thing or whatever, you can weigh their words against your own knowledge of the shepherd, against the voice that you've heard from God. And so, when you're able to measure that back and forth, you don't have to just blindly take somebody else's word for it. So I guess that would be my takeaway from this. Learn the shepherd's voice and use that to avoid being led astray by those who would come to steal and kill. So what about you? How are you going to hear the shepherd's voice?